It was a wild night of fights. UFC 258 is in the books. My emotions were all over the place. We had the return of the future. Maycee Barber, as crazy as it sounds, and Kamaru Usman put his stamp on the 170-pound welterweight division. Hello and welcome to the Golden Octagon MMA Podcast, number 7. I am Matt Anderson. On the right side of your screen, you have Dorian Rose. How are you doing today, my man?
Man, we're doing good. That was a hell of a main event last night. That was a hell of a fight to stamp off a pretty good night of fight overall, and I'm ready to talk about it, man.
Definitely. Before we get started, I'm going to give you guys a quick rundown of what we are going over on in today's show. So up first, we will be recapping and breaking down this past weekend's fight card, UFC 258, every fight besides the main event itself. And then after that, we will be moving on straight to the main event itself. We have a full topic talking about it. And then, which will lead us perfectly into, does Kamaru Usman deserve the credit that he is asking for? We're going to talk about this. Well, really, I'm going to ask you about this. I'm going to get your opinions on this and why you think what you think. And then we will move into this upcoming weekend's card, UFC Fight Night, Curtis Blaydes versus Derek Lewis. We'll get our picks in, do what we do, and then we will just be talking about any other news and any other topics that you and me want to talk about. But before we get started, if you guys wouldn't mind, please put a thumbs up on this video, show your support. We take time out of our weeks to do this for you guys, out of our days off for your guys' entertainment. And if you're not subscribed to the channel yet, what are they doing, Dorian? Come on now. Subscribe to the channel. It would really help us out. Thank you so much. So that's all we have, so let's jump into it. Up first on today's show, we are going to be breaking down the entire card as a whole, UFC 258, aside from the main event. So let me just pull up just the main card real quick. So aside from the main event, we have Maycee Barber versus Alexa Grasso. We have Kelvin Gastelum versus Ian Heinisch. The Pedro Munoz versus like the Jimmy Rivera fight, I don't know what happened to that. It just fell off the card completely. It was replaced by the Bobby Green versus Jim Miller fight, right?
Well,
and then that fell out too.
That fight ended up falling out too because Bobby Green had a weight cut issue.
And then it was finally replaced by Brian Boom Kelleher versus Ricky Simon. So that was the fourth fight on the card, and then up first on the night was Maki Pitolo versus Julian Marquez. So let me just run down what happened real quick. Kamaru Usman defeats Gilbert Burns. Maycee Barber loses to Alexa Grasso. Kelvin Gastelum gets it done over Ian Heinisch. Ricky Simon gets it done over Brian Boom Kelleher, and Maki Pitolo, I don't even know what else to say besides he dropped the ball against Julian Marquez. Julian Marquez gets it done. Third round submission. I don't even know what else to say. So we're going to start with the co-main event. We're just going to talk about this real quick. Maycee Barber versus Alexa Grasso. I'm going to give you my thoughts and opinions just real quick before we start. Throughout the fight, I just noticed one thing overall. Maycee Barber, I don't know if she's... I don't want to say like the wrong words because I don't want to be disrespectful, but I want to say I think that she thought that her arms were about 4 to 5 inches longer than what they actually were. She was throwing I don't know if they were feints or just setting up her shots, but she was a solid 2 feet away from Alexa Grasso. She was nowhere near Alexa Grasso. So just that alone, I was like, man, this doesn't look good. I don't know if what the range management issue was there. I have no clue. Give me your thoughts on how you thought this fight went, and because we both called this fight wrong. We both thought Maycee Barber was going to win this. So give me your thoughts on this fight.
Well, sort of the reason why I noted last week that I was excited for this fight was because it was a good matchup stylistically, because Maycee Barber, she's a little bit of a brawler. She throws a bunch of hooks. She's game, and she throws a lot of wild punches. But Alexa Grasso, she's so technical and she's so sharp with her hands. And you could tell when Macy Barber was trying to set up her shots early, Alexa Grasso, she was very patient and she was good at setting up her shots once Macy would step in. I think part of the little feints and stuff outside was she was trying to get some type of reaction out of Alexa Grasso, which it did look funny seeing her standing that far out. I seen where Dylan Danis had tweeted that he said that she was shadow boxing. And I thought that was, I thought that was pretty funny.
I didn't see that, but that is pretty funny.
That was actually pretty funny because once he said that, I kind of looked at it and kind of thought the same thing. But Alexa Grasso was very patient when Macy Barber was trying to get in there, and she won the first two rounds pretty clean. Alexa Grasso did, but that third round, Macy Barber, she seemed like she started really getting her timing right, and she was able to get in, and her coaches kind of prepped her for that third round and told her that she needed to go for the finish because she was losing the fight. And she went out in that third round and she was game as can be, and she definitely went for the finish. Just Alexa Grasso is as tough as can be, and it ended up being a really good fight overall. And I guess the odds makers were right in making Alexa Grasso the favorite because her hands were a little bit more sharp. And Macy Barber, you can still see she's a little raw, but she's only 22 years old, so it's not like this is the end of the world for her. I mean, she definitely has plenty of time to grow. You can see she has the tangible ability. You can see that she's game. In the fight against Roxanne Modafferi, I mean, she fought 2 rounds with a torn ACL. So, I mean, she's game as it comes. She's still young, so by no means does this mean that it's over for her. It just means that Alexa Grasso is more on the rise right now, and she put up a good fight and deserved to win that fight.
Yeah, I just think, the one thing, this means for Macy Barber is that her shot at being the youngest UFC champion is just kind of out the window at this point. It's just I don't see her,
and there's nothing wrong with that.
No, definitely not. But that was her goal. So I know it just kind of breaks her heart, just to know that that that's out and that can't happen anymore, because that's a once in a lifetime thing. After that age, that chance is gone, But definitely Alexa Grasso had been training her submission skills. She almost had Barber in a few submissions. I was oh, I didn't see that coming at all. But I feel for Macy Barber, I thought she had the fire behind her to get it done. But we both picked Macy Barber in this, as I said, but Alexa Grasso just showed the improvement in her game, and she just showed that she had the better striking tools, and she just got it done there. So we're going to move down the card. You picked Ian Heinisch in this one. I picked Kelvin Gastelum in this one. Kelvin Gastelum, I just want to say, I don't think Ian Heinisch on his best day could beat Kelvin Gastelum on his worst day, to be honest. I want to be at the weigh-in, Kelvin Gastelum did not look good at all. And at that point, I even messaged you, and I was like, oh, man, I don't know about Kelvin. He looks like he struggled to make 186. And I was like, man, he used to fight 170, and he had a hard time, I just feel like he has a hard time dieting. That's his thing. He loves his beans and his rice. He said it multiple times, So I just think that he just has he doesn't like weight cutting. That is his thing. No matter what weight class he's going to be at, he's not going to like weight cutting. But as I said, he didn't look good on the scale. So but in the fight, you could almost see in the third round, I don't want to say he was gassed, but he wasn't even trying. And at that point, I made the determination. I don't think Ian Heinisch on his best day is capable of beating KG. I'm glad I picked KG here. Give me your thoughts on this fight right here.
Yeah, and one of the reasons why I picked Ian Heinisch, I actually liked the money line on him as an underdog because where Kelvin Gastelum was at, he was on a 3-fight losing skid, and I was happy to actually see him get that win because he was actually able to implement more of his game. He was able to use a lot of his wrestling to control a lot of the fight, and he was able to. He wasn't even thinking about the wrestling until Ian Heinisch really shot in, and then once Ian Heinisch shot in, that's when Kelvin Gastelum was like, oh, okay, you want to wrestle me? Well, then let's do it then. And he started implementing his wrestling. And that's kind of the first time that we've seen Kelvin really put his wrestling on display like that. I think they said that was the most takedowns he landed in a fight. What was it, 4 or 5? So, yeah, he kind of showed more wrinkles in his game. He's also a young guy, too. I believe he's only 29.
Yep.
So, like, for as long as he's been in this game, like, he's definitely still young enough to evolve and grow. And just because he was on the 3-fight losing skid doesn't mean that, he's still not one of the top guys. And, he wasn't losing to chumps. He lost to Izzy. He lost to Darren Till. He lost to Jack Hermanson. I mean, those are all, of course, Izzy's one of the best fighters in the world. Darren Till, I'd say he's one of the top 10 middleweights, and so is Jack Hermanson. So it's not like Kelvin Gastelum was losing to chumps. I just thought that Ian Heinisch was kind of rolling, but I think Ian Heinisch is kind of showing more that once he gets sort of closer to that top tier level, he fought Derek Brunson before, and Derek Brunson sort of beat him the same way. Just weathered the storm in the first round, and the second and third round really turned it on. And Kelvin Gastelum really controlled the fight from the beginning to the end. And I think more Ian Heinisch, when he gets to that top tier level, it just seems like he just can't really seem to put a good performance together. But it just shows that Kelvin Gastelum, even though he was on that 3-fight losing skid, that he's still one of the top middleweights in the world, and he's still got more wrinkles in his game, and he's still got room to grow, and he's still one of the top guys in that division.
Definitely. KG showing that he is still at the top of the 185-pound division. So we'll move down the card. First it was Pedro Munoz versus Jimmy Rivera. Then it was Bobby Green versus Jim Miller. That got thrown off. Which brings us finally down to Ricky Simon versus Brian Boom Kelleher. We didn't have a pick on this fight on the show last week because this wasn't on the main event last week. But I just kind of feel like we probably would have both picked Brian Boom Kelleher. He's a fan favorite. My man's got power. I threw a bet on him to win. I did think that he had the power to get Ricky Simon out of there. Ricky Simon does tend to be hit, as you saw in the fight. My man just kept getting hit with hooks and up kicks and everything, but he showed that he has a chin. After I saw Uriah Faber knock him out, I wasn't sure. I was like, oh man, Uriah Faber's older, but I guess Uriah Faber still has that power in him. Anyway, after that happened, I wasn't sold on Ricky Simon, and I do like Brian Boom Kelleher, and like I said, he has that power to put away people. And I thought that he had what it took to get done here, but Ricky Simon just wrestled him, just did what Ricky Simon does, just pretty much did nothing but wrestle him all 3 rounds. Give me your thoughts on this fight.
Well, I actually, I did put a little bit of money on Kelleher as well, and I also would have picked him because he is a fan favorite. He's a very game fighter. He stands in there. He doesn't care about getting into a brawl, and he'll go for the knockout or the submission. He's really good for that guillotine as well. But I thought that Ricky Simon, he really put on a good performance overall. He did do a little bit of wrestling, but he also, he just put the pace on Brian Kelleher, and Brian Kelleher just couldn't get set. And Ricky Simon, every time he would try to, or every single time Kelleher would try to get set to throw something, Ricky Simone is just in his face, just jabbing, kicking, leg kicks, takedowns, elbows. He even was getting a little creative there, and he was throwing that lead elbow.
Yeah,
he threw
from UFC 4.
Yes, it looked exactly like he was doing it at a UFC 4, and he threw one 3 times in a row. And it's just his unpredictability and his pace. it's a lot to keep up with. And I listen to Chael Sonnen a lot on his YouTube channel, and that's one dude who he, can't talk enough about is Ricky Simone. His pace, his work ethic, his cardio, and all these things. And we've been kind of waiting for him to put on one of those performances to wow us, and that was kind of really the performance that I've seen from him that wowed me. That he had put on the pace, and you could see that Kelleher, he was landing those up kicks, he was landing some good hooks and things like that. Ricky Simone does have a good chin. I think Uriah Faber, he's always has some pretty good power, and power is kind of the last thing to go in a fighter. But I do agree with you that I did kind of write him off after that. I wrote Ricky Simone off after the Uriah Faber fight, saying that I didn't think he was one of the top bantamweights. But I do think, even though they fought at featherweight, he fought another bantamweight. They just didn't cut weight, basically. But I do think he's one of the top bantamweight contenders. And in the performance last night, I thought he, put on a great performance overall. He mixed it up very well, and that was a good performance by him.
Definitely a heartbreaker for me. As I said, we did have money on Brian Boom Kelleher to get this done. But that is MMA betting. It is tough. You will definitely lose money. Hopefully you didn't lose as much money as I lost in the main event. But before we get there, we need to talk about how this card started off. The first fight of the pay-per-view, Maki Pitolo versus Julian Marquez. I'm high on Maki Pitolo. I love his nickname, Coconut Bombs. On the other hand, Julian Marquez, his nickname's not bad either. The Cuban Missile Crisis, pretty cool. But fight started off, Maki Pitolo opened up. I was right on him, throwing bombs. There was no filling out process at all. It was a great fight to start off the pay-per-view. No complaints there. And then Maki Pitolo showed some parts of his game that we haven't seen before. Apparently, he's a great wrestler. From I would say 30 seconds into the first round, Marquez was on the ground the entire fight until the third round, when it looked like Maki Pitolo was just gassed. He had been giving it his all the entire fight, wrestling every bit of the fight, giving all his energy. But Julian Marquez showing that he had the heart. He did not give up. Third round submission. I didn't see it coming. I don't think anyone saw this coming. Julian Marquez said earlier in the week he had one good round in him. He was going to give it all he had. But who would have thought that he would be winning by third round submission against, I guess, a fight that he had been losing the entire time against Maki Pitolo? What did you think about this fight?
Yeah, and another fight that I ended up losing a little bit on, because I thought Maki Pitolo was in a good spot as an underdog going into that fight. But Julian Marquez, he showed a lot of heart and showed that, he showed that dog in him when it got to that third round. Because, Maki Pitolo, he's known for, kind of being the brawler type. His name is Coconut Bombs for a reason. He throws the hands. He lets them go. So, he was throwing heat there to start the fight, and then he started controlling it with the wrestling. But one thing that Julian Marquez was doing was that he kept throwing up that guillotine, and he almost got Pitolo a couple of times with it. And even when Maki Pitolo went back to his corner in the second round, his coach told him, get your head up when you're going in for the takedown, because every single time you go in, he's trying to get you with the guillotine. And Julian Marquez was trying to set something up. You could see in the third round that Maki Pitolo was gassed. And I loved it when in between the second and third round, when James Krause, I love him as a coach, by the way. He's a very good coach. But he got in Julian Marquez's face and, was just telling him that you're going to have to go for it right here. You've lost the first two rounds. You're going to have to get the finish if you're going to win. And that's exactly what Julian Marquez did. He started walking him. He started walking Maki Pitolo down there towards the end of the fight, and was just landing bombs on him. Like, he was just throwing crazy, spinning elbows to knees and crazy hooks. And his right hand, he was almost throwing like a hammer fist, like just throwing anything that he could at Maki Pitolo, trying to get him out of there. And when Maki Pitolo went for that takedown, he went to get the guillotine once again. Maki Pitolo kind of panicked, and that's when I think it was the anaconda choke that he set up and got him with. So Julian Marquez just showed the heart of a lion, man, and showed that dog in him when he needed to, and that was a great turnaround in that fight, because he was losing every bit of it until that last few minutes in the third round.
Yeah, the coaching in between like round 2 and 3, as you said, was spot on from both corners. As you said, James Krause told Julian Marquez that he had to give it his all at that point, and then Pitolo's coach told him he's going for the guillotine. Make sure that if you're in, you're chest to chest and nothing else, because he's going to get you. And sure enough, Pitolo had his head in, got out like 2 or 3 times, and I was like, okay, he's not going to get him in the guillotine, but he ended up wrapping up the darts it was at the end. He ended up getting them. And Julian Marquez at the end shooting his shot, calling out Miley Cyrus for his Valentine. Miley Cyrus responding on Twitter to shave an MC on his chest, and then she's his. So look at that. Shout out Julian Marquez. You're getting your shot. Do you, man. Congratulations. Yeah. So that is every fight besides the main event of the night. Anything else like you want to talk about from the card itself, aside from the main event, Dorian?
I really liked that Anthony Hernandez performance against Rafael. What was his last name? Adolfo Vieira.
Yeah.
Adolfo Vieira. Yes. For some reason, I almost said the other lady's name on the card, Vienna.
Yeah.
But no, that was a really good performance. He was on Anthony Hernandez was on his back early in that fight. And, Vieira almost got him in a couple different submissions. And you could just see after, that the first grappling transition, Vieira got tired. And Anthony Hernandez just started walking him down and started landing shots on him. And that's when Vieira started going for the takedown. And right at the end of the first round, I loved it because Anthony Hernandez stood up and stood over Adolfo Vieira, and he nodded his head like this. And that just meant that he knew that he was getting ready to put Adolfo Vieira away in the second round. And that's exactly what he did. And for him to be the big underdog that he was, that was a hell of a way to, shut the naysayers up.
I don't know if you watched it, but in my post-weigh-in bet breakdown, I called it. I was like, man, the bet odds makers are doing Fluffy no respect. Fluffy is a dog. Fluffy used to be massive. He lost so much body fat. The dude is in shape now, and the over-under on this was 1.5 rounds, so I did have that in a parlay, but I did put $10 on Fluffy to win this, and hey, you know what? I tripled my money because Fluffy was a 3-1 favorite, so no complaints from me there. You know what? I'll happy take my money there. I called it on my post-weigh-in bet. As you said, crazy. I was just... If it would have also gone over 1.5, it was close. It was real close. It was like 30 seconds away. I would have won both those. I would have been so hyped. But on that parlay, I also had Gilbert Burns winning, which leads us perfectly into our next topic, Kamaru Usman versus Gilbert Burns. Oh, man. Hopefully no one bet their entire house on this fight. I know Gilbert Burns as a 2.5 to 1 underdog in this. It is so tempting because, as you saw, Gilbert Burns is a killer. He has knockout power. He'll submit anyone. The odds makers also were doing Burns. I felt like no respect, but in the end, you find out why. So, Kamaru Usman versus Gilbert Burns. I'm going to give you my initial thoughts on this fight, and then we can kind of go from there, and you can tell me how you thought this fight went. So, came out, Gilbert Burns threw a hook, knocked down Kamaru Usman, and at that point, my face was glued to my TV. I was like, oh, come on, baby. Because I did put a lot of money down on Gilbert Burns on this one. I really thought that he was going to get it done, and when that happened, I was so psyched. I was like, "Come on, put the pressure on him, put the pressure on him." And you hear DC says exactly what he needs to do. Burns needs to empty the tank right now. Like when you hear that, you're like, "What? That sounds crazy." But Kamaru Usman is a dog, and if you don't put him away, he will be there till the end. And Burns said in his post-fight that he got overexcited, which even makes what happened, I don't understand, because Burns said that he got overexcited, but to me, and it looks like everyone else, he didn't put enough pressure on him. So I just think personally it was a dump, and he gassed himself out, and he didn't know what to do. But after that sequence, something happened, and Burns ended up on the ground. And you saw Usman didn't want to go to the ground with him at all. As good a wrestler as Usman is, and the pressure that he puts on, and the ground and pound that he puts on, he didn't want any part of the ground game with Burns. So it was feeding into my beliefs more that after the first round, Burns' hands were better. He was better on the ground. It just looked like Usman was hesitant. After he got hit, it looked like he was hesitant the entire first round. But after that, Usman started off just slowly hitting him with the jab over and over and over. And it was almost like that was his only strike, because it kept hitting, and he just kept using it, and that was the only tool that he needed. And from that point, Usman dropped Burns multiple times with a jab, and I don't even. It was over from there, just jab after jab after jab. And what stuck out to me in the fight, and I don't think anyone played too much part into it before the fight, was the 5-inch reach advantage that Usman had over Burns, because you don't see Usman use his hands that much, and it really played a part because Usman was able to jab Burns over and over again, and like you would see Burns just jump in with the hook and not even anywhere close and just get hit with the jab at the exact same time. So I think the main factor, and obviously it was at this point, was the jab of Kamaru Usman. Give me your thoughts on how you thought this fight went, Dorian.
Man, I did not think that Usman was going to be able to knock him out. Or I didn't think he would be able to do it in the fashion that he did. I thought it would be similar to like Colby, going 5 rounds. But I did think that Usman was going to win this fight. And I do think the odds were about right. Usman is just that great of a fighter. I know before the fight started, I had sent you the screenshot of the resume of Usman, going into the fight, undefeated in the UFC, 12-0, 16 fight win streak, and now all those are, 13 fight win streak in the UFC and 17 fight win streak overall. He's just a dog, man. And I know in that first round, Gilbert, it was obvious that Gilbert had the speed advantage going in. When he was just looping with those punches, when he was stepping in range and swinging, it was clear that he had the speed advantage. But I still don't think that he had the power advantage. You could tell when Usman would land, there was a little bit of a difference. And Usman was hesitant once he got dropped at that first shot. I do agree. But one of the things that I noticed, and when Gilbert Burns ended up on the ground, I think it was because I believe he threw a head kick, and Usman had blocked it and kind of stepped forward, and I think he stepped on Gilbert Burns' foot. And Gilbert Burns had
the foot stomps.
Even unintentionally, he's doing foot stomps. But Gilbert Burns ended up on his back, and that actually had given Usman a chance to recover.
Exactly.
When Usman was standing on top of him, kicking his leg like that. So Burns was content, staying on his back. But at that point, I think think you had to get up and put more pressure on Usman, because it's clear he's not going to get on the ground with you. But that was just pure smarts by Usman to do that, to stand over top of him and just kick his leg and punch his body, because he's letting you do it, and that's letting him recover. And I think that was a big part in him being able to come back in the second round, because you can see at the end of the first round, as you said, he was starting to land that jab, but he was actually, switching stances a lot. He was going from orthodox to southpaw a lot. But and one of the things that you noted as well was, the reach advantage. You can see that Kamaru started getting his range, and he was standing just outside of Burns' shots, and he was able to counter. And it was one of the left hooks that Gilbert Burns went to throw in the third round. And one of the things that Kamaru Usman, he has evolved with Trevor Whitman is his striking overall. He might not be the best striker, but man, he does not waste punches. He is accurate, and whenever he throws and lands. And in that second round, when Burns goes to throw that left hook, that's when Kamaru was just out of range, and he's in the orthodox position. He throws a straight right hand, and it's like a shotgun, dude. And he makes a hard connection on Gilbert Burns, drops him, and then he starts putting pressure on him there at the end of the second round. Started popping him with a jab, hitting him with some overhands. And you can see that in his game overall, you can see that his striking is starting to become, a little bit more potent now. And I think that, the Trevor Whitman thing, I still think that's something that you just can't overlook, because, even, with the Colby fight compared to this fight, he didn't have the speed. That was for sure in the first round. But his striking is starting to become a lot more polished now. And I know going into the fight, we were talking about the difference with, Usman leaving the camp and wanting more individualized training. But I think this is helping him evolve and become a better fighter. And, Rashad Evans also said, which he's one of the guys that are really close to Kamaru Usman. He said that one of the big reasons why Usman had wanted to leave was because he wanted that individual training. And I think that's just something that can't be overlooked, because you can see his striking is much more polished now. And he was going from, southpaw to orthodox, and he was still landing the jab each time. And, you could tell his right hand is his best hand, because he dropped Burns with the right hand in orthodox position in the second round, and then he dropped him with a jab in the southpaw position. So he was making sure he got that right hand in there any way he could, and he was crushing him with that jab there in the third round, dropped him with it. And he had the killer instinct to know that, he knew he had Burns hurt right there, so he felt comfortable to jump in there and go for the ground and pound and go for the finish. And I thought it was a good stoppage. And that was just a hell of a performance from Usman to get dropped in the first round the way he did, and to be able to come back and get the TKO in the way he did.
Usman definitely showing some improved stand-up skills, but I just want to hit the brakes on everyone saying that he's greatly improved. Like, this dude is not going to go out and win any boxing matches, any kickboxing matches anytime soon. The dude showed that he had an improved jab, but aside from that, I didn't see too much more that was shown with the hands, because in the first round, like when it was kind of like back and forth, he looked hesitant, like really hesitant. And then in round two, when he threw the hook and dropped Burns, I feel like the rest of the round, he could have finished him. Burns was stumbling around the entire rest of the second round, and it was almost like he was patient, but he was almost too patient. He could have finished it round two. He really could have.
Well, and I think that, we're not giving Usman enough credit, too, for his heart, because, and just his determination, his will, for him to get dropped like that. And, most fighters are going to panic, go in for a shot, maybe an ill-advised shot, especially on Gilbert Burns, and Gilbert Burns snatched him up in a submission, and, he lost his title. But, he gets dropped. He stands right back up and still stands in the pocket with him as if nothing happened. And, he showed great resiliency there. And I don't think it's that he's all of a sudden Israel Adesanya when it comes to striking. But the thing is, he's improving each fight. He's also, he's 33 years old. He's right in the prime of his career right now. And he's still evolving when it comes to his striking. And it's not a matter of him being the best striker. It's a matter of he's a better striker than the grapplers are in his division, and he's a better grappler than the strikers are in his division. He's the most well-rounded fighter, and he's already the best wrestler in the division. So he knows he has that ace in the pocket. So now it's just evolving on his the rest of the areas in his game, and part of that is his striking, especially when he gets in there with a guy like Gilbert Burns who can submit him. What is he going to have to do? It's going to end up turning into a kickboxing match, and the point is that he's got a hell of a chin. He can take a shot. He's got good cardio, and his striking isn't the most polished, but he's powerful and he's accurate. He doesn't waste punches. He's got great cardio. The dude can go for seemingly, he could probably go 35 minutes if they made it a 7-round fight. I bet he could probably go for that long, because the dude has a gas tank for days, and he's the most well-rounded fighter, I believe, just because the way he can put everything together with the grappling and the striking. Because, as I said, he's a better grappler than the strikers are, and he's a better striker than the grapplers. So he's the most well-rounded guy in that division, and arguably in the UFC with the way that he can put it all together.
Okay. Overall, a great fight. It was back and forth. Burns dropped Usman, then Usman dropped Burns, and then dropped him again. And then overall, a great night of fights. The embrace in the cage afterwards, you just felt for both guys. Like, that they're friends. They everything they had went through. Shout out to both guys for having me invested in this fight. I was emotionally invested in this fight. I just wanted to see what happened. The UFC did a great job promoting this fight. You spoke about credit right before, or in your first sentence of what you just now said. You spoke about credit, which will lead us perfectly into our next topic. Does Kamaru Usman deserve the credit that he is asking for, and why? And then after that, I want you to kind of throw in at the end if you think that everyone else that doesn't give him credit will give him credit after this performance. So up first, does Usman deserve the credit that he thinks that he's not getting?
Yeah, I think he does, because one of the things that he was saying, I had listened to his post-fight press conference, and one of the things that he was saying was that he wants to be higher up on the list of the pound for pound, and I actually agree with him, because just the way that he was able to put on the performance against Gilbert Burns, being able to finish him, being able to finish Colby Covington, and he took Masvidal took the fight on 6 days' notice, but you got to think that Usman was training for Gilbert Burns originally for that fight, so he ended up switching to Jorge Masvidal the last second as well. So he also took the fight on short notice, even though he was in a camp. That's a complete different opponent. So I think part of the reason why people don't like to give Usman credit in the way that he asked for it is because he kind of bugs me with certain antics as well. I do think that Masvidal, broke his nose in that fight. Usman has said that Justin Gaethje broke his nose 2 weeks prior. He says certain things like that, and it's like, it kind of irritates you a little bit. Sometimes I think him handling himself in the media, he can kind of say things that are a little annoying. He might say something about an injury, but then if someone follows up on the injury, I don't want to get into it, but it's he does things like that, and it does irritate me sometimes. And some of the things that he does as well is he tries a little too hard to be hard. And I think that, some people can tell, and it just seems kind of forced. And he's not. It doesn't feel like he's his genuine self sometimes. But for the most part, as far as a fighter, his talent, the dude can do it all. I think performances like Masvidal, because that was a big event pay-per-view wise. A lot of fans bought the pay-per-view. They were expecting a brawl. Usman and Masvidal have been talking this trash the whole time, and then it ended up being a foot stomping match. And a lot of people ended up getting pissed off about it. But me and a friend were actually talking about that fight the other day, and it's more of a thing where if you can't stop it, why would he not continue to do it? It's sort of like Floyd Mayweather. He played defense in a lot of his fights, and people wanted him to just bite down and get in the brawls. But you're paying for the pay-per-view, so you want to see him get knocked out, but don't expect him to just stand there and brawl. And Usman's not going to stand there and brawl with someone who's a better striker. He's going to control the fight. And I think sometimes his fight style, like against Masvidal, his performance against Woodley, he dominated Woodley, but it wasn't the most aesthetically pleasing fight. He controlled a lot of that fight with his wrestling, and he had that flurry there. I think later, like in the fourth round, where he started, putting some strikes together on the cage, but other than that, it was pretty much controlled by the wrestling. And performances like that, it's not a fan favorite. And a lot of people, just dismiss Usman. But I think, putting these performances together like he has against Colby and Gilbert Burns, two of the most dangerous fighters in that division, and for him to put him away in the way that he has, he's definitely deserving of the credit that he's asking for.
Okay. I agree with you. I just think, like, the one thing that gets to me about Usman is he tends to do the most trash talking when he's hurt. And it doesn't make any sense to me. Like, at the Super Bowl week last year, when the Jorge versus Usman video went viral or whatever, like when they were like back and forth, Usman had the cast on. He's like, come do something. And then Jorge's like, you have a cast on. What do you want? Like, what do you want me to do? I ain't a bully. Like, you're hurt right now. He's like, oh, it don't matter. I'm like, it does matter. You have a cast on. And he tends like to do the most trash talking when he's hurt for me. So that is just what I've just noticed. So it just kind of makes me not like him. But you have to give the dude respect. He is showing why he is the welterweight champ. He's good. We don't know if he's great yet. That is the thing yet. That's just the thing. We just don't know yet. Like, he is shown, all signs point to he is the best at the division ever, but I just think it's hard to give him that respect when you just see everyone else, like Khabib, that has just won. He just dominated 100%, shown no sign of like weakness at all, no chink in his armor at all. And then you see John Jones winning over 10 years in the UFC, and then you see Usman, like, he hasn't lost, but at the same time, just the amount of greatness that he's shown, I just don't think is there yet. But hey, we have plenty of time left. There's a lot of contenders at the 170-pound division. We've got Khamzat Chimaev if he can get COVID over with. Hopefully we can see that one day. But let me ask you this. Will he get the credit that he's asking for after this fight? What do you think?
I think he has to. With him putting away Burns in the way that he did, like myself, I didn't think he'd be able to put him away. I thought it'd be more of like a war, a 5-round war, and he might get some control on the cage and and go to a unanimous decision. But for him to knock Burns out, he's putting together a lot of finishes, and I think that's what Usman gets stained for the most is he has a lot of decisions on his resume, and people, they don't like that. They like the finishes. But here lately, he's been putting a lot more together. He's evolving his game, and I do think he needs to move up in that pound for pound list, because especially with Khabib retiring, I would say, top 3 pound for pound: Israel Adesanya, John Jones, and Kamaru Usman. I think that he does need to be in the talks for, one of the pound for pound best, if not the pound for pound best.
Okay. A bold statement by my man Dorian Rose here, but I just don't know, man. I don't know if he, to me, it almost seems like he's asking to be the GOAT, and I just don't know if he gets that credit, man. He is good. He has proven that he is a fantastic fighter. But just to me, I just almost feel like he's asking to be the GOAT, and man, I don't know that. Me as a fan, but guess what? As the outside, guess what? It doesn't matter what my opinion thinks. We're just here talking. That's what this is. We technically do not know anything. This is just our opinions. I don't really have anything else to say on that card, Dorian. On the card itself or the main event, Usman Burns. Anything else on that, man?
Just a great performance by Usman overall, and I think he's not the greatest of all time right now. And people are going to hold against him that he doesn't have as many title defenses as George St. Pierre, but George St. Pierre also got the belt early in his UFC tenure. I think Usman had to go to 9-0 in the UFC before he was given a title shot, so he had to fight a lot more to earn the title. He broke GSP's win streak in the division. He has a few more guys I'd like to see him fight. I'd like to see him fight maybe Stephen Thompson, just for the matchup stylistically, because Stephen Thompson has really good takedown defense and he's good with distance. So I would like to see maybe a fight like that. But Usman right now, yeah, he's definitely making his way up there as far as one of the greats.
Okay. That being said, we will move right along. Our second to last topic of the week. We are going to make our picks for this weekend's upcoming fight, UFC Fight Night, Curtis Blaydes versus Derek Lewis. Before we start talking about this for just 1 second, I guess our picks from this past week were a draw, because technically the only fight that you got right on that card was Usman winning, and the only fight that I got right was Kelvin winning. So I guess it was a tie. And when that happens, the belt stays with the current champ. So I guess you'll have the belt still, for this week. So we're not going to make a huge fuss about it, but it's also not going to be vacant either. You can continue to have it. So we're going to jump right into next week's card, Blaydes versus Lewis. Right now on the main card, 1, 2, 3, 4. On the UFC website right now, I'm not sure what's happening. One of the fights, it says Rafael Alves versus TBA. So I don't know if that fight's going to be happening on there. So we're just we'll talk about the other 5 on the main card here. So we'll make our picks. We've got Curtis Blaydes versus Derek Lewis. We've got Kaylin Vieira versus Yana Kunitskaya. We've got Charles Rosa against Derek Minor. Alexei the Boa Constrictor Olenek versus Chris Daukaus. And this fight to start off the card, fantastic. Andrei Arlovski versus Tom Aspinall. Man, are they setting up Tom Aspinall right here. Don't get me wrong, Andrei Arlovski has some dog left in him, but if you have seen Tom Aspinall fight, man, I don't see this fight going over a round and a half. Arlovski is old, man, and Tom Aspinall is a young killer. So let me make my picks real quick off the top. I'm going to be honest. Curtis Blaydes versus Derek Lewis. This is going to be a wrestle fuck. I'm not gonna give it to you any other way. Don't be surprised if Curtis Blaydes takes Derek Lewis down 3 times in this fight. The first round, the second round, and the third round, and it will stay there the entire time. I know Lewis can get up from being down, but Blaydes is massive. The only time he has ever lost is against Francis Ngannou, and that's because this man is like a god. This man has the power of thunder in his hand. But So I'm gonna pick Curtis Blaydes there. Moving down the card. This is a kind of tough one for me. Female MMA is tough, but at the same time, it's super fun. I'm gonna throw a curveball here. You know I like her. I picked her to be Chris Cyborg. I'm going Yana Kunitskaya here. You remember that? Yeah, you remember that.
That was awful. I never let you live that down.
So moving down the card, we will go Charles Rosa versus Derek Minor. I honestly don't know a whole bunch about Derek Minor or Derek Minor, however you say it. I'm not sure. Charles Rosa last fought against Thug Nasty Bryce Mitchell. Was able to escape the twisters of death for the 3 rounds, but he got close multiple times. This fight, I am going for Charles Rosa. So moving down, Alexei Oleinik versus Chris Daukaus. I cannot bet against Alexei Oleinik. He seems to always pull it out against a guy that isn't too massive. Chris Daukaus isn't too big of a guy. He isn't like one of those massive heavyweights, so I believe Alexei Oleinik has a chance to get a choke here. And then the first fight on the main card of the night, Andrei Arlovski versus Tom Aspinall. I kind of gave it away in the little breakdown there at the beginning. I'm going Tom Aspinall here, Dorian. So I guess, who are you going with for the Blaydes versus Lewis fight?
I'm actually going to go for I'm going for the underdog.
Oh.
I'm going to go for Derek Lewis.
Dude, he's a big underdog too. He's a big underdog.
Derek Lewis, I'm not gonna lie. This is a little bit of a bias pick. I love me some Derek Lewis. He's definitely one of my favorite fighters.
Me too.
But one of the things that I do think that he has worked on is his takedown defense and his get up ability. Curtis Blaydes, he does get takedowns. He as you said, massive for the division. So when he gets in there and he gets a hold of you, in all likelihood, you going for a ride and you going down.
And you ain't getting up.
It's very rare for someone, he was able to throw around Volkov, and you see how massive Volkov is. So Curtis Blaydes is definitely capable. I think Derek Lewis, man, I think he has them lunch pails for hands, and he's very capable of landing one of those, and he's good about throwing uppercuts whenever wrestlers try to take him down, and he even did it in the Ali Latifi fight. He's good for throwing flying knees, and I think he can actually maybe pull an inner Corey Sandhagen and catch him with a flying knee coming in. No, I don't think he's going to catch him with a flying knee, but I do think that Derek Lewis can land the knockout shot and get him out of there. So let me go Derek Lewis on that. Caitlin Vieira, Yana Kunitskaya, always give you a hard time with Yana Kunitskaya, but no, definitely going Caitlin Vieira. She's definitely, a tough fighter. She had that tough loss there, Rainy Aldana, but other than that, she's very game as well, so I'm going her. Sort of same analysis with Charles Rosa and Derek Minor. Not too familiar with Derek Minor. I thought Charles Rosa had like a comeback win after the Bryce Mitchell fight.
He may have. I'm not sure. That is just like off the top of my head. That's just the one that I remember Charles Rosa fighting in like last, just because I'm a Thug Nasty fan. And I remember he fought him not too long ago.
Yeah, I believe he had picked up another win actually after that fight. So, but I'm actually going to go Charles Rosa. Give me Chris Daukaus. I think that, Alexei Oleinik, the boa constrictor, you can always count on him going for the Oleinik choke, as they call it now, but I do think he's a little bit past it now. He gets hit a little too much, a little bit slow. Chris Daukaus got good hands. I think he's going to get the knockout there. And then Arlovski and Tom Aspinall. Yeah, I think similar to the same as the previous fight, the previous heavyweight fight. I think Aspinall is going to be able to get the knockout. He's very fast, good hands, and I think that he's going to be able to get Arlovski out of there.
Like, before we stop talking about this for just 1 second, I just kind of want to focus on the main event for just 1 second. Man, the odds makers on this, they are giving Derek Lewis no credit. So I will be throwing some money on Derek Lewis as the underdog here, man, because Lewis does have power, and I know Blaydes has been knocked out, but does Francis and Derek Lewis have equal power? I guess that's just the one key factor that is what's going to matter here. Something else is Francis's reach, man. Francis' arms are massive, and that plays a part. Not as quite as big on Derek Lewis' side, but as you said, same with me. Derek Lewis, a fan favorite fighter. I love watching the Black Beast fight. His balls are always hot. I don't know, but that's just what he says. I guess that's going to be all for this card. So we got our picks locked in. I'm going Blaydes, Kunitskaya, Rosa, Olenek, and Tom Aspinall. And Dorian is going Lewis, Vieira, Rosa, Chris Dawkins, and Tom Aspinall as well. So we got a little bit of a mix-up there. Hopefully the belt can come home with me next week. But if not, I know it is in good hands. So before we get out of here, let's just talk about just some other stuff that has just kind of gone on. I just want to point out one thing for me. I feel like Dana is just watching this show every week. So, hey, Uncle Dana, how you doing? Because I feel like after every one of our shows, something happens that we just talked about. I know last week we didn't really bring it up, but I just want to give out 3 things that in the past week I'm like, come on now, we just talked about this. And I feel like I watch tons of MMA media, MMA podcasts, and no one has brought this up but me and you specifically. TJ versus Faber, that's being talked about all of a sudden. A couple podcasts ago, I'm like, I feel like that's a solid return fight for TJ. It's years in the making, and you're like, nah, man, just let it die. I'm like, nah, man, there's still heat there. I believe it can happen. So that's number 1 for me. I just feel like somebody's got to be watching. And then last week, or like the week before, I'm not sure, we were kind of talking about sport versus spectacle. What's the biggest fight to make? And if Uncle Dana didn't show his cards right away, Poirier, Conor 3 seems to be in the makes, seems to be happening. And then he said it himself. He was asked this question specifically, hey, what's going on with a lightweight tournament? And he says, well, the thing is with this tournament, so is Dana agreeing that this is a lightweight tournament happening? We didn't think this was going to happen, but just so much crazy stuff happening. Give me your thoughts just off the top on TJ versus Faber. We kind of already talked about it, but just throw a little bit more at me for a second.
Yeah, and we had talked about it, and no, I'm not gonna lie, I'm not too keen on the fight. I actually like the idea of TJ getting the Aldo fight, because I think I don't want to call it a tune-up fight, but that's a fight well enough to know, if TJ can beat Aldo as good as he's looked here recently, that he's well capable of competing for a title. I think that it's only right that he would get a fight like that. And I think a fight with Uriah Faber, Uriah Faber hasn't fought since he got finished by Peter Yan. And, what is Faber now, 41, 42? So, and I know Dillashaw is not the youngest either. I believe he's about 36 now. So I know time has been by since he's been suspended and everything. But I'm not going to lie, I'm not too big on the fight. I think, if this was to happen, it should have happened 4 years ago. It's a little bit too late for, Faber to be trying to, throw his hat in the ring and these, intense rivalries and stuff like that. I would rather see Aldo and Dillashaw than I would Faber, but I'm going to watch it either way. Okay,
fair enough. But, I feel like Dana had to have been watching our show, right? Because we talked about these things, and then you're like, nah, that probably won't happen. And all of a sudden, he announces that he's working on Dustin versus Conor 3. What's up here, man?
Really, more of it is just that, Conor's pissed, and he wants his rematch. And I guess he feels that it's only right since he gave Dustin a rematch. And I think Dustin just wants to cash in on the most money that he can make right now. And especially for his foundation, the Good Fight Foundation that he got going on, and this is the money fight, and he knows that he's deserving of a title. I think he believes that he can go into this third fight, beat Conor, and then get the title fight afterwards. And it's the most money that he's going to be able to make. So why not go ahead and take advantage? And I think Dana, especially at this point, is more interested in just putting on the bigger fight at the moment, the one that's going to make the most money. And especially if Conor wants to be active as well, why not? Why not put it on if everybody's all on board with one another? I just think as far as promotionally for Conor, if he loses this next fight, I mean, you can pretty much say that, he might be able to call it quits. I just think that going right into an immediate rematch with Dustin, I just think it just spells bad luck for him because, going into the fight, I predicted Poirier to win because I just think Poirier's a better fighter at this point. And I think that you can really ruin Conor promotionally if you take him in there to get finished again by Poirier. But if Dana wants to go ahead and risk that opportunity to, go ahead and basically cash Conor out for one more big check, I guess go ahead and do it.
Crazy. The entire 155-pound division. He said the top 7 fighters in the division, any of those 7 could be the champion. Let me know, what do you think is going to happen with this tournament, as they're calling it? I don't know if they're going to have some brackets set up. I don't know if they're going that far. But just let me know what you think about what's going on here and who you think might be the dark horse outside of those top 4 in the division.
It's kind of hard telling right now just with everything going on because, as you see, Dana's supposed to be having another meeting with Khabib. So it's like, you know what? I'm getting really tired of all these meetings going on right now.
I'm tired of these meetings.
I'm so tired of hearing about him having all these meetings with Khabib. It is clear that Khabib really doesn't want to fight. I think he's just accepting the meetings at this point because Dana's getting him some really good dinner. At this point, he must be getting him something that Khabib keeps returning.
Oh, just one second. I don't know if this is true or not. I saw, I was like scrolling through Instagram or like maybe Twitter, I'm not sure, but I saw that somewhere in there, I don't know if it's true, but I saw that it looks like Khabib's promotion is trying to make Fedor versus Brock. I'm like, maybe that's what Khabib is doing. He's trying to get good with Dana so Dana will let Brock fight for his promotion. I don't know, maybe just a thought. I'll throw that out there, but go ahead, continue.
Yeah, possibly. I know he's trying to get his own promotion going and everything, but I think it's really hard to tell what's going to go on with the lightweight division because, Dana still wants to try to get Khabib in for that 30-0. So he voiced his opinion on that again over the weekend. And I think he wants to let the rest of the guys fight it out. So I think it's more of, Chandler get matched up with Gaethje, Conor fight Poirier. Oliveira is probably going to be the odd man out unless they end up giving him like a Beneil Dariush or somebody like that to fight because, Kevin Lee, he's not really in the position right now. Paul Felder and Oliveira have fought before. And maybe that's a fight you can think about exploring. That's a rematch for Oliveira and, he beat another top 7 contender in the lightweight division, but it's really hard to kind of predict how things are going to go because things are still up in the air with Khabib.
Definitely. What a time to be alive if you are a combat sports fan. Just everything crazy happening in the sport. I cannot wait for this upcoming UFC pay-per-view. The 3 title fights, Dorian. We got to do something like for that one, man. Either you gotta come here or I gotta come there. We gotta watch this one together, man, and then we gotta film like a podcast live afterwards or just something like that, man. I almost feel like it's just something that we have to do. It is a huge pay-per-view, and I feel like it's far enough away to where we can kind of plan it out. It's like 3-4 weeks away. I almost feel like we can kind of figure out something, but as I said, a crazy time to be alive if you are an MMA sports fan. That's pretty much all that we had this time, though, guys. Anything else you want to put out, Dorian?
Just a good performance last night from Usman and a good pod today. Glad we was able to get it in.
Always a good pod. Kind of a long one today, but well worth it. Always a good time. Remember, guys, if you made it all the way this far, please put a thumbs up on the video. Show us your support. And if you watch the whole video now and you're not subscribed yet, man, I don't know what you're doing. You got to figure yourself out now. Just hit that red button. It's super easy. But that's all that we have for this time, guys. Remember, next Sunday, we'll be back, or I guess Monday for you guys. Monday night usually is when I have it edited and uploaded. This one's going to be a long one, but it's okay. We'll catch you next week, guys. After the fights, we'll let you know who the new champ is on our little pick game we have going on. We'll see who is better, Curtis Blaydes or Derek Lewis. That's all that we got this time, guys. Stay golden.